having taken a powerful blow from Kuma. Saint Saturn was severely injured and unable to get up immediately. The Marines were extremely worried about his safety and couldn't believe that Kuma had confronted one of the 5 most powerful people in the world. This was an unprecedented crime. But for Kuma, it no longer mattered, at this moment. All he wanted was to protect his daughter. His body, heavily injured, then collapsed from exhaustion, taking advantage of the Marines rushing to rescue Saint Saturn, who was crushed under the rubble. The others were now able to move normally again. Sanji quickly ran to Bonnie to check if she was injured anywhere. Frankie said this was their chance, so they had to quickly get her onto the ship and escape. Atlas said she would take Kuma with them, but the very next second, they had to stop, hearing Bonnie's cries. Her father, though tired, still managed to go over and comfort her. Witnessing this, Dr. Vegapunk wondered what had happened. According to theory, Kuma no longer had any memories. Yet, in his eyes, he still remembered Bonnie, slowly walking with a heavy body. He reached out and embraced his little daughter. Thanks to this, Bonnie stopped crying and called out, "Dad." Seeing this scene, everyone was moved to tears. It had been too long since they had hugged like this. Vegapunk then recalled that he had not installed a bomb in Kuma's body as instructed by the government. He knew that if he did, they would use his friend as a suicide weapon. But in the end, he still had to follow the government's instructions. He installed a complete shutdown button inside Kuma. Yet his friend was still alive and here, protecting his beloved daughter. This left Saturn utterly astonished and unable to react, as he was the one who pressed the self-destruct button to deactivate Kuma. Somehow, that father still retained his own will. There was no reason for Kuma to act like this. He even flew here himself to find Bonnie. Scientifically, it was completely inexplicable. Vegapunk then realized that the cause might be the special bloodline of the Buccaneers. Nearby, Admiral Kizaru was still sitting in one place, not acting. Sentomaru was also very happy to know that Kuma had come to save his daughter. The confusing thing was that Luffy had disappeared without a trace. The Marines were extremely worried and didn't know how to report it. At this moment, Bonnie happily touched her father's mechanical body, saying thank you, and also revealed that she had seen all of his memories, from when Kuma was born and lived with his family, until they were enslaved by the celestial dragons. Kuma also began to remember everything, from the time his father told him his mother had gone to heaven, and how both father and son were in immense pain and could only cry. Then came the escape from hell at God Valley with Ivankov and Ginny, when they successfully created a miracle, saving all slaves from their death sentences. And then the memory of Bonnie being brought to him to care for. Gradually, his daughter grew up, and the two of them made a promise to explore the world together. And if they reached the Sky Island, they could find Nika. This was what Bonnie was looking forward to. And when she turned 19, she wanted to go to Fishman Island. The picture Bonnie drew for Kuma later became his symbolic flag. Looking at it, this father remembered his little daughter. Their time in Dr. Vegapunk's research lab was also very happy. Occasionally, they would all sit and eat pizza together. Kuma had once thanked Bonnie for being born into this world. Now, recalling those memories, both father and daughter were very happy. The little girl also praised her father as an incredibly wonderful person. These words made Kuma remember Ginny's image when she was young. Bonnie's mother always acted strong to protect Kuma. Unfortunately, this couple could not be together, even though they both loved each other very much. When Bonnie saw that part, she knew how much her father had to sacrifice to protect her and her mother. She was very happy to know that he had written many letters to her during their time apart. Even though she only recently read them through her father's memories, she was very happy. This father always wanted his daughter to see the beautiful scenery in real life, not just through books. And finally, there was the message that he loved her. The time spent in the research lab with Vegapunk was also very interesting. So he invited Bonnie to come there for an adventure once she recovered. In the 2 years before he became a cyborg, Kuma tried to go to all the distant places in the world to explore. Even if everyone called him a tyrant, Bonnie still loved her father very much. And he was the kindest and most wonderful person in the world. The Marines were currently gathering forces to rescue Saint Saturn, and immediately after, his power erupted, blowing everyone away. He was extremely angry at being punched by Kuma. and Sanji's group was worried because they thought they had already defeated him. The opponent then jumped out of the rubble with serious injuries. And Frankie was surprised that Kuma's attack was effective. Saturn asked Vegapunk what was going on. Had he secretly influenced Kuma's body? The doctor didn't know how to explain it, saying it was the power of love. The opponent heard this and considered it a bug. The dark power then helped him regenerate his body as if nothing had happened. Facing an enemy of this caliber made Sanji worried. But as soon as the opponent targeted Kuma, he rushed out to help. The Straw Hat Pirates had been helped a lot by Kuma, so this was the time to repay him. Frankie was about to fire a laser when Admiral Kizaru intervened. He praised them for developing so much and wanted to see if that growth could stop him. Although Frankie managed to shoot through Saturn, he was also defeated. Bonnie ran over and asked the doctor to save her father because he couldn't move right now. Vegapunk asked Atlas to carry their friend away while they stayed to hold them off. Sanji and Frankie also intended to stay but were sent away by the scientist so he could handle it himself. Admiral Kizaru wanted to end this here. The old friend felt that Kizaru was truly pitiful, recalling the time they spent together playing happily. This admiral admitted that he was indeed pitiful for not being able to cry, thinking it would have been better if he had worn dark sunglasses today. Outside, the warships had received orders to punish those who challenged the world government. This island was considered a threat, so everything would be burned down just like Ohara. Saint Saturn declared that those who study the world's secrets, those who carry the bloodline of a vanished race, those who awaken the ancient god, this island is where all that he declared converges, so it must be destroyed. The Buster Call Order has been activated, and all naval warships off the coast are ready to fire. Dr. Vegapunk asked Saint Saturn to revoke that order, because this place is the future of humanity. Sanji's group was trying to get Kuma to hide, and Bonnie was very sad to see her father unable to move. Her eyes began to tear up, feeling sorry for her father. Returning to Vegapunk's negotiation, even though he said Egghead was the future of humanity, the other party still disagreed. A subordinate came to invite the two leaders back to the ship because it was very dangerous here. But the old man said that he and Kizaru would stay here until the very end. After preparing for the bombardment, they should immediately open fire. The vice admirals hesitated upon hearing this but were dismissed by Admiral Kizaru. Dr. Vegapunk thought that if only he died, everything would end, so why destroy this island? Egghead stores many of the latest research achievements from all fields. If it is destroyed, humanity's scientific progress will regress by 100 years. His old friend turned to Kizaru for help, but Kizaru looked sad and just turned away. Unable to help, Saturn asked if Dr. Vegapunk was hiding anything else from the world government, or if he was secretly creating something troublesome. If so, he didn't need progress that carried rebellious ideas. The genius scientist bowed his head and begged one more time. Unexpectedly, the other person revealed that he had sent a fleet to destroy the ship that left the island yesterday, carrying all the scientists working there. The reason given was that there was someone on that ship who knew something about the Void Century. Hearing this, Dr. Vegapunk asked heartbrokenly why he did that. They knew nothing, they were all innocent people. Saturn blamed him for dragging them into this. Just like the people of Ohara, they were drawn into the desire to explore things from the past that no one was allowed to know. He angrily said that Vegapunk was foolish, so he should disappear forever with this island. Off the coast, all the soldiers were retreating from the island, everything was ready, so they could open fire immediately. As for Sanji, he was urging his teammates to quickly go to the rendezvous point. While Vegapunk was stalling for time, they had to seize this opportunity. Bonnie asked what about him, and Sanji smiled and replied, "Don't worry, I'll go there and bring the doctor along." Frankie also relied entirely on him and wished him good luck. The young man quickly contacted Nami's group to ask about the situation there. Everyone seemed to have reached the back gate. Nami was shocked to learn that the Marines had activated the Buster Call Order. Their crew had faced it countless times, so Usopp and Chopper were very scared. Robin was seriously injured but quite worried about the others. She wanted to do something to help but couldn't. Chopper saw this and advised his friend not to do anything but to rest. Nami asked about the captain and learned that he hadn't been seen yet. However, Sanji guessed that Luffy would be fine. The important thing was to find a way to escape here immediately. Currently, Zoro was still holding off Lucci and couldn't return, so Jinbei also had to go there to help, because if he left him alone, He would definitely get lost. Brook was currently helping Lilith move the Sunny. Their original plan had fallen apart because Vegaforce 01 had been destroyed by Kizaru. Fortunately, their musician had another idea. With his ability, he froze the surface of the clouds so that the ship could glide smoothly. The girl praised the skeleton for being so good. With this method, they would reach the back entrance soon. Praised as a genius, Brook was very happy. When Lilith asked how to stop the ship, he said he hadn't thought of that yet. As a result, the girl slapped him for being so stupid. If they continued like this, they would fall straight down. Brook cried out for help, not knowing what to do. The scene shifts to the Marines. After seeing the protective barrier still in place above, he ordered them to fire into the urban area first. The target was to destroy the central factory and the future city. Hundreds of cannonballs were fired simultaneously. The rain of bombs worsened the situation. Yet at this moment, someone was still eating comfortably. Luffy's stomach was so full he couldn't eat anymore. There were still a few Marine soldiers blocking his escape. However, the subsequent bomb rain blew them all away. Luffy, being made of rubber, was also bounced elsewhere. The unfortunate ones who hadn't returned to their ships in time shared the same fate as the island. With buildings continuously collapsing, pacifistas continuously fired with terrifying power, piercing through everything. The future Vegapunk had built collapsed right before his eyes. He watched heartbroken as his empire gradually disappeared, his emotions completely gone. The doctor collapsed, as the future of humanity ended here, along with his own distant dreams. Saturn looked at Kizaru, ordering the admiral to finish off his close friend. He accepted the order, gritting his teeth and moving forward. Sanji arrived just in time, urging Dr. Vegapunk to run. On the other side, Atlas was activating the travel device. After launching at the speed of sound, Frankie was extremely excited. The travel time was only a little over 30 seconds. Unfortunately, the pipeline passed by Kizaru. With his devil fruit ability, even at the speed of sound, he could still catch up. As a result, the group inside the rocket was cut in half. They flew out, putting everyone in danger. Sanji angrily cursed Kizaru, then tried to fly up to save his comrades. Saint Saturn saw Kuma and immediately ordered the pacifistas to target the father and daughter. Bonnie reached out for her father's body. They became the new targets of the cyborgs. Unable to do anything, the daughter's cry of "Father" made Kuma regain consciousness for a moment. He used all his remaining strength to hug Bonnie and shield her with his back. The little girl was moved to tears, thinking that at least if they died, the father and daughter would be together. The scoundrel looked at this scene with glee. He thought of the daughter Kuma risked his life to save, now having to die at the hands of his own clones. This was truly deserved for a bunch of insects. Dr. Vegapunk was also heartbroken seeing the people he loved in danger. Earlier, after hearing that his granddaughter had become a pirate, the worst-case scenario had appeared in his mind. The pacifistas, shaped like Kuma, would personally shoot her down. This was truly heartbreaking beyond words. A barrage of destructive beams fired towards them. Sanji tried to approach and help. The scene shifts to the warship fleet ordered to eliminate the scientists leaving the now burning island. It's unclear what happened. The surviving Marine soldier tried to report to Admiral Kizaru that they had failed to destroy the exploration ship, and someone was heading towards Egghead. At this moment, Luffy was being threatened by dozens of Marine soldiers with guns. They demanded that the Sea Emperor surrender immediately. However, the main character just glared, calling them all weaklings and telling them not to order him around. Just like that, his large, round body immediately shrank back to its normal shape. Digesting a large amount of food in a short time was too illogical, astonishing the Marine soldiers. They believed that Luffy was indeed not human, because who could make their belly swell to its maximum and then shrink down so quickly? Since bombs and bullets were still raining down on the island, the soldiers ignored Luffy and returned to their ships, as it was too dangerous there. A loud laugh came from within the smoke, which provoked the remaining Marine soldiers. Just as they were about to use sea stone handcuffs to neutralize his devil fruit power, the ground suddenly turned into rubber. The warrior of liberation had returned. Once again, Luffy, in his Sun God Nika form, was incredibly joyful, laughing and joking, scaring everyone away. On the coast, the Marines were still using warships to shell the island. The damage was immense, but Dr. Vegapunk didn't care about that now. What he feared was that Bonnie and the others would die. knowing he needed to do this to save everyone. The doctor called Atlas to relay a message to his granddaughter. While Saturn and Kizaru weren't paying attention, Vegapunk had completed his mission. He urged Atlas to quickly tell Bonnie about this. Below, Sanji was also trying to get close to rescue them. Below were a series of cyborgs ready to open fire. Atlas tried to approach the father and daughter to deliver the message from the doctor. It was a gift Vegapunk had for his beloved granddaughter. Understanding everything, Bonnie looked at her father, then turned around and shouted loudly for the pacifistas below to hear. She told them not to shoot Dad, and to help them escape this island. Upon hearing that command, all the cyborgs immediately stopped and turned to aim at the marine warships. This was a huge shock that left the other side no time to react. Just like that, many warships were shot down in an instant. Perhaps this was the final mission of the pacifistas when they were created by Dr. Vegapunk. The damage to the Marines was immense. The only thing he worried about ultimately did not come true. The years Bonnie and her father lived in the laboratory. From that moment, the doctor had foreseen that the future would become like this. What could be more terrifying than being killed by one's own beloved father? To prevent Kuma from harming his own daughter, Vegapunk programmed a special command into all Kuma-like units that only he knew. Even if they received orders from the government, or even if the world turned its back on the father and daughter, the Kuma-shaped pacifistas would forever stay with Bonnie and protect her. This was his own selfish wish, and the consequence of this action was being stabbed through the chest by Saturn. The doctor had foreseen the consequences but still accepted it. Witnessing that scene, everyone was worried, but the danger had not disappeared. Kizaru had been ordered to eliminate everyone above. With the speed of light, he flew towards the father and daughter to attack. Just like that, everyone was hit. Sanji tried to counterattack but it was useless. Kizaru approached Bonnie and told her not to worry. He would finish it quickly so she wouldn't feel any pain. At the most critical moment, the laugh of the warrior of liberation rang out. In the very next second, a giant, reinforced fist punched the Marine Admiral far away. The girl knew it was Straw Hat Luffy, but she had no idea where he was. After eating his fill, he had enough strength. Just like that, the entire island was transformed into highly elastic rubber. The building swayed to the joyful laughter coming from the main character. Saint Saturn poked the ground with his staff, realizing that everything here now had the properties of rubber. The warrior also approached, thinking this game was starting to get fun thanks to Luffy's special ability. The group of friends were unharmed after falling from the sky, but they still faced a formidable enemy they couldn't defeat. Their only hope at this point was probably Luffy himself. Outside in the sea, the pacifistas were still firing at warships, and the Marines were trying their best to stop the biological robots. Admiral Kizaru, after being knocked away by the main character, was dazed and unable to get up. Bonnie saw Dr. Vegapunk lying on the ground and immediately ran to check on him. He was still alive, so his granddaughter urged him to quickly get up and run. Their enemy advised them not to resist in vain. However, at this moment, Luffy arrived, making the buildings shake. The old man called him a troublesome brat. The drums of liberation that Luffy created once again awakened the giant robot on the island. This rhythm also helped Bonnie start to realize something. Back when the father and daughter were still at the church, they often talked about Nika, the legendary warrior. Kuma really wanted to become a hero to save the oppressed and suffering. His daughter also asked if he would come to save her, and he said of course. So, the father and daughter danced to the rhythm of liberation that Kuma knew. Legend says that Nika will come with laughter and move to this rhythm. The drums of liberation grew louder and louder. Bonnie intently looked at Luffy's current appearance. Everything matched her father's description of the hero of liberation. Dr. Vegapunk then confirmed that everything his granddaughter was thinking was true. At first, he didn't believe it, but after witnessing it with his own eyes, he understood. Luffy, the one Kuma entrusted his faith in, was the embodiment of the Sun God Nika. So, the person she had been searching for all this time was here. Bonnie was moved to tears and looked towards her father. Kuma was completely right, as everything he said about Nika was true. A hero who would powerfully change this world. Currently, the order to destroy this island was no longer effective, because out there, many people had been waiting for Nika for centuries. At the same time, a giant ship was approaching from the sea. They realized that the battle had begun. And as the newspapers had reported, both of them were here. The Marines then continued to receive bad news. That a giant ship was approaching from behind. Seeing that symbol, a vice admiral had to send an alarm to all warships that the giants were coming. This was completely unexpected because everyone thought the two people on that ship had disbanded 100 years ago. The only thing that could make them present here was Luffy. So the Marines fired cannons at the giant ship. However, their firepower was too weak to cause any damage. To answer the question of why Dory and Brogy were here, the two giant warriors jumped down, submerging the marine ship. They laughed and unleashed powerful slashes, threatening the small people below. Of course, both of them were here at Luffy's call. Or rather, the Sun Gods. The giant pirate crew officially landed on the island.
With their colossal bodies, Dory and Brogy sent the Marines fleeing in terror. The large axe struck directly down onto the warship below their feet, shattering everything into many pieces. The giants began to shout, calling for the remaining members to come to the island to help Luffy. With just one jump, the two giants reached the mainland, followed by familiar figures who crushed everything in their path with a large ship. Oimo and Kashi were assigned by the captain to defeat all the troublesome marine ships. Dory reminded everyone to be careful and spread out to eliminate anyone who dared to touch the Straw Hat pirates. Hearing this, everyone laughed loudly to boost their morale. Just like that, they coordinated to destroy all nearby warships. The Marines could only scream in despair, unable to do anything, announcing that the legendary giant pirate crew had arrived. The leaders were Brogy and Dory. At this moment, the Marines still didn't know why they were here at this crucial moment. Warships from afar tried to fire cannons, but failed. With the giants' bravery, they continuously destroyed warships without any difficulty. At this time, Usopp, from above, discovered that his old friends had come to help, and was moved to tears. He asked why the great lords had come. Nami was delighted that Oimo and Kashi were also there, and the group began to recall what had happened years ago. For a very long time, the world had always feared the giant pirate crew, but they disbanded due to a fierce quarrel between the two captains, Dory and Brogy. Luffy and the other members unfortunately fell into that 100-year-long battle, even though they had forgotten the reason why the two sides fought. But Brogy and Dory continued. Luffy and Usopp were extremely amazed by the immense pride displayed by the two giant warriors. This motivated Usopp, who said, "This is exactly what I want to become, a brave warrior of the sea." And on another island, the Straw Hat Pirates met Oimo and Kashi, who wanted to know news about their captain. After that, everyone became friends, and now, when everyone was in danger, these friends came to help. Perhaps the giant pirate crew had heard some news, which is why they rushed here. This incident is an attack related to the government. The next day, it will surely be published in the newspaper. Although the news will be written in a way that benefits the government, it will still be enough to create a major shocking event. Usopp was also sure that the great lords would not come to fight, but to save them. So they also had to speed up the plan. Nami contacted Brook to ask how he was, and only heard the other girls scream. Brook reassured her not to worry. He would be there soon, with the Sunny. Although he still didn't know how to stop, he was very confident in his luck, advising Lilith that rushing wouldn't help. She was afraid that if they continued like this, they would crash into the barrier and explode. She contacted Nami again for help because she would pass by them. Elsewhere, Zoro and Lucci were still fighting without a clear winner. The situation was becoming more chaotic than ever, so Jinbei reminded the crew's swordsmen to end the fight quickly. After fighting for a while, Zoro was also out of breath from exhaustion, saying Lucci was truly stubborn. While he himself was in a hurry, the opponent said that only the final winner had the right to say that. The two sides continued to clash. Lucci reminded Zoro that he was making his teammates wait to distract him. Martial arts versus swordsmanship, but because the other person possessed an animal-type devil fruit, his stamina was far superior. Thus, Zoro was pushed back. The opponent knew the personalities of the Straw Hat crew members, which was that they wouldn't abandon anyone, so he simply needed to stall for time to win. Because that way, the other members would be stuck here. Hearing this, our swordsman replied that he was not the one to decide how long this battle would last. So don't be overconfident. Returning to the coast now not only means facing a giant pirate crew, but the Navy is still suffering heavy losses from the biological robots. About 30 small warships have been sunk, and the number is still increasing. There's no other way. the Vice Admiral of the Navy ordered the large ships to target the pacifistas to reduce the damage. Although it's still unknown why the biological robots rebelled, the top priority is still to preserve the Navy's forces. Nearby, despite the extremely intense battle, two other powerful figures were leisurely strolling. It had been a long time since they had participated in such a large battle, so they were quite excited. The sniper friend thought this was definitely a battle that could change the fate of the world. Returning to Bonnie, who was now looking at the image of the Sun God Nika, every movement, every sound that Luffy made impressed her. She had always been looking for the warrior of liberation, and now that person had appeared, seeing her friend crying. Luffy asked if something was sad. Bonnie called Luffy an idiot. Of course she had to cry because she had always been looking for him. Luffy laughed and said that he had always been there with her all this time. She said that before she didn't know Luffy was the Sun God Nika. In fact, Luffy didn't even know what Nika was, and asked why she wanted to find him. Bonnie replied that she always wanted to be able to throw a powerful rubber punch like him. Hearing that, Luffy remembered that this friend had also used a similar move earlier. He criticized that punch as being very weak. Hearing that, Bonnie asked Luffy to demonstrate, to throw a powerful punch toward Saturn to avenge Vegapunk. He looked at the scientist and realized there was a large hole in his chest. Shocked, Luffy's eyes popped out. Their enemy had not yet acted, but declared that the insects would not be able to do anything to him. Luffy didn't think so, and when Bonnie asked him to take her and everyone off this island, Luffy agreed. By the way, he wanted to show Bonnie what a powerful punch was like. Conqueror's haki began to emanate, making Saturn worried. He continued to use his gaze to make Luffy unconscious, but this time he endured it. He laughed and charged, then used two giant fists to continuously punch Saturn in the face. He couldn't resist, and could only endure the damage Luffy inflicted. Bonnie witnessed this scene with great satisfaction. The words Kuma once said about Nika appeared in her mind. The actions of the warrior of liberation moved her soul. Nika was considered a legend, but that father had told his daughter that the warrior of liberation would make everyone laugh to the rhythm of liberation. And if the hero could change this world powerfully, Kuma believed it was Luffy. High above, our captain was still throwing a series of powerful punches at his opponent. As a result, Saturn couldn't bear it, and was sent flying through the buildings. Luffy laughed gleefully after those punches. Thanks to him, their group had time to escape. Atlas urged everyone to hurry up and go. Frankie also called Bonnie, but she was worried about Dr. Vegapunk. He said he was also a medical expert, so he knew his current condition well. So, don't worry, and run first. Suddenly Kizaru's voice rang out, saying that whether he moved or not, he would die anyway. Before everyone could react, this admiral shot a beam of light directly at them. Fortunately, Sanji stepped forward to block it, surprising the opponent. Frankie's jaw dropped, and he exclaimed that it was a laser beam, and yet he could still kick it away. His friend said that it didn't matter to him. His love would definitely be stronger than light. Hearing this, Kizaru found it funny, and wondered if there was something wrong with Sanji's head. Frankie was assigned the task of protecting Bonnie and not letting her get hurt. Vegapunk continued to urge his granddaughter to leave the island with Kuma. They could now hover close to the ground, allowing them to move quite quickly. Luffy then praised his crewmate, saying Sanji was amazing. The Marine Admiral said he would lose face if he couldn't bring back their heads. Sanji lit a cigarette and chuckled, saying that in that case he just needed to write an apology letter to Marine headquarters. Meanwhile, St. Saturn unexpectedly encountered two members of the Blackbeard pirates. Devon had eaten the mythical nine-tailed fox devil fruit. Seizing the opportunity, she approached and touched Saturn's body with one hand, saying the mission was complete. Van Augur, on the other hand, had eaten the warp fruit. When asked about being one of the dangerous prisoners on level 6, yet serving someone else, Devon said Captain Teach was special. The old man also knew that Blackbeard's bloodline was very special, coupled with the strange actions of this pirate crew. Saturn wanted to know what they truly wanted. Van Augur said it was the world, but he was attacked by the old man. However, using his warping ability, he safely transported his comrade to another location. Since the mission was complete, both intended to return immediately. Van Augur himself had not yet mastered his warping ability and still needed more practice. Suddenly, a familiar face appeared, crying with joy at having found the two. Caribou couldn't believe he met them here and asked to join the crew, saying he set sail with the same hope as that person. And his dream was to become one of Blackbeard's subordinates. So he begged the two to take him with them. Caribou cried, saying he had a secret that Mr. Teach would surely want to know. He believed that if he were introduced to the captain, both their statuses would be elevated. However, Van Augur didn't believe him, and directly threatened him with a gun. Caribou, terrified, begged, saying he wasn't an enemy, so they shouldn't shoot him. He cried out that fate had brought them together in this place, asking if they thought so too. As for him, he was very sure, so he begged them to listen. Devon felt that the man in front of them was truly incomprehensible, while Van Augur knew clearly that the opponent was Caribou. Although they were both pirates, this island belonged to the world government, and the appearance of a stranger was not worth trusting. Caribou begged them not to kill him because he was not a subordinate of the Marines at all, and if they killed him here, Captain Teach would crush their heads. This threat made the other two feel confused, asking for a clear explanation of why. The suspect then revealed that he had important information that others didn't know. Devon felt it was absurd just hearing it. What important information could a mere incompetent pirate have? Caribou continued to assert that if they killed him, they would regret it for the rest of their lives, because he possessed information powerful enough to shake the entire world. He hoped they would understand and take him to meet Captain Teach, as it would be mutually beneficial. He secretly thought about what he had accidentally learned. These were ancient weapons named after gods that had existed since ancient times, one of which was Poseidon, held by the mermaid princess Shirahoshi, and another was Pluton, deep underground in Wano. These terrifying ancient weapons were said to be powers capable of destroying the entire world. The Straw Hat Pirates, and he were the only ones in the world who knew the exact locations of both of these destructive weapons. Looking at Caribou's confident expression, the sniper asked him to reveal the secret now, but he refused. Only when I meet Captain Teach will I provide all the information I have. He will surely be delighted. Back on the beach, the Marines still didn't know how to deal with the biological robots. Although some pacifistas had been taken down, there were still many left. The Marine warships were shot down one after another, and each time they fired back, the bubble shields of the biological robots activated, blocking all damage. Having no other choice, the vice admirals had to order a retreat before the casualties increased. However, the attack range of the pacifistas was very far, and even though they kept their distance, some ships were still shot and exploded. The desperate cries of the Marine soldiers worried Vice Admiral Doberman. He knew that if they couldn't control the pacifistas, they couldn't destroy this island. Fighting them also made others feel bored, and, furthermore, the giant tribe had landed on the other side of the island. These were all unexpected events. Since Dr. Vegapunk was the one who gave the pirates control of the pacifistas, the Marines had even more reason to destroy this place. The crime of betraying the world government was a very serious crime that needed to be dealt with strictly. First, they wanted to regain control of the biological robots, and that could be done by eliminating Bonnie. Many vice admirals were ordered to go ashore and search for her. At this very moment, Frankie and Bonnie were being pursued by Vice Admiral Tosa. Although they were flying at high speed, the old man could still catch up. Atlas asked Frankie to use all his strength to shake him off, but due to the excessive speed, it was very difficult to control. He tried to weave through the trees, while Tosa used his muscular strength to cut them all down. Witnessing this scene, the two were extremely worried. Bonnie warned that he was about to do something. The Vice Admiral tensed his arms to unleash a special move towards Bonnie. However, before he could get close, the giant tribe arrived and intercepted him. With just one blow, the Vice Admiral was flattened. The Frankie group looked up and were terrified by the giants. As a latecomer, he had no idea who Dory and Brogy were. The young girl screamed in fear, as it was her first time seeing someone so huge. Frankie thought they were enemies, but that wasn't the case. Their friend asked who they were, and although they had studied the new Straw Hat members through their bounties, they didn't recognize anyone. Dory said, "We're here to find Luffy and the others." Frankie happily replied, "He's our captain." When asked if they wanted to fight Luffy, they said no. The giant pirate crew was there to help their old friends. This was the promise they had made with the Straw Hats long ago. With such strong allies, Frankie felt completely at ease. Bonnie said that Vegapunk, Sanji, and Luffy were in the center of the island. Hearing those names made Brogy feel nostalgic. Of course, they would save Vegapunk, as he was the person the scholar had mentioned. So, the giants took Kuma onto the ship for treatment. The others would head to the center of the island to help Luffy. Outside, the vice admirals were losing patience as Tosa's communication was cut off. The remaining ones were forced to seek out the giant's ship for an opportunity. Many years ago, Dal had a giant as a boss, and he was very strong, so the members of the giant pirate crew could not be underestimated. The Frankie group was being taken to safety. He said that the remaining crew members were in the laboratory in the clouds. Back to St. Saturn, who was now panting, his entire body suddenly transformed, becoming stronger and larger. Luffy went to Vegapunk and asked if he was okay. The doctor's heart was being measured by advanced equipment in the laboratory, and it was weakening by the second. Conversely, their enemy was becoming more terrifying. Wherever Saturn went, poison spread, to the point where the ground melted. Luffy realized that if he took Dr. Vegapunk away now, he would bleed to death. Admiral Kizaru felt things had gone too far, and being constantly obstructed by Sanji annoyed him. Conversely, Sanji asked the opponent not to block their way anymore. At this moment, Saturn's ugly form attracted them. He was extremely angry that he still couldn't eliminate Luffy, who was still sitting there talking with Vegapunk. He said that they had promised to take him away from here. However, he knew he wouldn't live much longer, so he asked Luffy to leave. He also wanted to tell Bonnie about her power when she got a little older, saying that her life would definitely be in danger. So, he hoped Luffy could protect Bonnie. Sanji stood before the enemy and felt that he was completely different from a human, from his insane eyes to his monstrous appearance. Saturn looked towards Luffy to find an opportunity to attack. Sanji also warned him and immediately carried Vegapunk to another place. He knew the doctor would be in a lot of pain, but had to endure a little longer. The main character, seeing his comrades in danger, actively attracted attention. By clapping his hands loudly to create sound, he laughed and said, "I'm here to provoke the monster." Saturn, provoked, turned to target Luffy. However, he easily dodged the attack and simultaneously asked Sanji to take Dr. Vegapunk first and not to worry if he was in pain while moving. Following that advice from the captain, Sanji turned and ran, but Saturn chased him. The main character appeared in front of him again to provoke him. He said, "You will never be able to catch us." He even slapped his butt like a child. Extremely angry, Saturn attacked wildly, but not a single blow hit Luffy. He dodged very well, treating this battle as a simple game. As for Dr. Vegapunk, he now asked to be put down. Sanji continued to run, but Kizaru appeared and blocked his way. He was kicked away, unable to do anything. Vegapunk was pierced through the body by his old friend using devil fruit powers. After the act, the Marine Admiral felt very sad, but could not disobey orders from his superiors. Sanji was also shocked to see Dr. Vegapunk like this. Luffy continued to ask his friend to take him to the back of the island with the other members. This time, Kizaru did not stop them, but just stood there, holding his sadness within. Luffy angrily transformed his body to become huge, and even Admiral Kizaru and Saint Saturn were held tightly by him, unable to move. Luffy said he would not let them chase his friends. Vegapunk, at this point, could no longer breathe. Looking at Luffy one last time, he smiled contentedly, and then his heart stopped beating. Sanji, heartbroken, tried to shake Vegapunk awake, but it was in vain. Perhaps the doctor had foreseen this scenario, so as soon as his heart stopped beating, a pre-prepared recording immediately played for the whole world to see. Dr. Vegapunk introduced himself as a genius scientist, and the message he left behind would surely shock everyone. But it was the truth of the world, so he would still speak it.